Hello and welcome to another video. So today we're going to be taking a look at all the cards for the mini expansion. I waited till all of them come out because I didn't think it was worth just making a small video about each individual set or just doing 10 and then 7. I wanted to do them all in just one go for you guys before they come out. Plus this will be pretty much my first look at most of these cards. I've taken a quick glance at some of them as I was of course putting together some of the stuff, so I have a little bit of an idea on what some of these cards are going for, but for the most part it's going to be a fresh perspective, completely offhand, and we'll see how we go. So the first card of course is Assault Priest, a 5-drop for 4 Havencraft Gold, Ward, Fanfare, draw a card, evolve, destroy an enemy follower that attacked last turn. So pretty standard stat line, not a bad evolve effect. Of course it does remove Ward on the evolve effect, which is a little rough, but the draw a card is also quite nice. So I think overall an average card. I'd like to see where this could kind of slot in. 5 drops a little bit of a clunky spot in Haven at the moment, but maybe future Haven decks could take advantage of Assault Priest. Then of course, Ruqyah of the Resistance, I think that's how we're going to pronounce that. Anyway, it's a 2-drop 2/2. Looks following the grey theme with the character art, but we'll have to wait and see about that. It is a Portalcraft card, Fanfare. Give all allied Portalcraft followers the following effect. Can't be destroyed by spells and effects. Can be destroyed by damage from spells and effects. So the pretty standard Portalcraft effect these days is not being able to be destroyed, especially in this set in particular. So it's nice to see we get some decent support, especially as a 2-drop. This could really have a big effect in artifact decks where you could protect quite a massive board very, very easily. Of course, that doesn't stop outright spell damage, which is a little disappointing, so maybe it won't work that well. But, I mean, worth a shot, definitely worth an attempt, and a bit of fun. Then we have Grey Mysterian Dragoness, a 3-drop 2/3 for Rune. It is a Mysteria card. It's nice to see Grey going to Rune for Mysteria, as it was in the past in Dragon, so that's always nice. It is a Ward. Of course, that's pretty good for a 2/3 standard follower. With, of course, the Evo, choose, put either Grey's Ember or Grey's Inferno into your hand. Grey's Inferno is a 3-drop spell, deal 1 damage to a random enemy follower 5 times, so with a bit of damage boosting. That's the word I was going for, damage boosting. This card could be quite formidable, which would be awesome. Then we have Grey's Ember, deal 3 damage to an enemy follower. So both follower-based cards, 1 random, 1 targeted. I don't mind that too much at all. Of course, both the Mysteria cards as well, and reasonably cheap, so that'll also play into it. Then we have Magnolia Battlefield Muse, a 5-drop 1/5 for Swordcraft. It is Commander, it is the legendary for Sword. No shocker here that it's a 5-drop. Sword is pumping 5 drops all the time. It's not a big shock that it is a 5-drop, but a lot of people were hoping for a good 7-drop to replace Arthur, but I think this does a fairly decent job as is. At the end of your turn, give +1/+1 to all allied officer followers. Evolve, put a random follower that costs 2 play points and a random follower that costs 1 play point from your deck into play. At the end of your turn, give +1/+1 to all allied officers. So pretty nuts, honestly. I think in Unlimited you could make a really good use of this card in some kind of spam deck or buff deck. Even in rotation I think it has some decent playability. Whether overall it'll be played is yet to be seen, but it's definitely not a bad card by any means. It's definitely in the I would love to see how it plays out card, so definitely interesting. Then of course the first card that was actually announced was New Order, the 6-drop 6/6 legendary for Portalcraft. So Fanfare, banish all cards in your deck, then put 10 Mystic artifacts, 10 Radiant artifacts, and 10 Prime artifacts into your deck. So playing off the Prince of Darkness motif, definitely going for that. Awesome, interesting card. I want to test this out. It looks like fun. Just spamming artifacts into your deck could be nuts. And if you had a setup with a Saphira in your hand, it has some potential. Then we have Madamuse, Raging Dragon. 2-drop 2/2 legendary for Dragoncraft. So low cost legendaries for Dragoncraft works in PDK. Bane for the 2-drop is good. Fanfare, if you have 10 play point orbs, give all allied Dragoncraft followers Rush. Reduce damage to those followers to 0 until the end of turn. So reducing basically all damage at that point, because it doesn't specify anything else, so we can safely assume it's going to be all damage to those followers to 0 till the end of turn. Makes it very difficult to remove things outside of straight up destruction spells or banishing, so not a bad card. I think if you get to 10 play points, it doesn't require turn 10, just 10 play points, so ramping will have an effect. I think PDK could be absolutely massive with this card as a good combo. Then we have a Crow, Region of Darkness, a 6-drop of 5/5 Shadowcraft card. Fanfare, choose, put either a Infernal Crow or a Descendant into Madness into your hand. Descent into Madness, sorry. So the Infernal Crown is a 7-drop amulet, countdown 3 at the end of your turn. If this card's countdown is at 3, reanimate 8. If at 2, animate 10. If at 1, reanimate 12. So it's basically continuous reanimation, which is pretty crazy. Due to the way reanimate works, even though it does say reanimate 12, and currently I think we only have like maybe one reanimate 12 target, which would be Death Straddle. I think that's higher cost than 10. I can't remember off the top of my head, honestly, but either way, you're going to be reanimating a minimum of 2 10-drops with this card, which is great, and an 8-drop, which is crazy. So really awesome card to use in those sort of reanimate decks. I think it's got some potential to go along with it, which is nice. I mean, Zeus would be a big one, as this card will work with Zeus on turn 2 and 1. On the countdown 2 and 1. So Infernal Crown, definitely a card I would check out. It's going to be a bit of fun to play with, and maybe bring back the old Reanimate Shadow, which I actually had a lot of fun playing, so I'd look forward to that. Descent into Madness, though, is a 1-drop spell, so give +4 to an allied follower, Necromancy 4, give the follower Rush. So definitely a pretty decent card, going to go well in the Arcus Shadow type builds, Descent into Madness, giving you a lot of extra reach. Although you might go with other options, this definitely isn't a bad one, so I would like to see at least this card, Crow, played reasonably. I mean, it is a 6-drop 5/5, so it does kind of curve out in the kind of 6-drop space, which is something Shadow seems to be lacking since, of course, the Grumry nerf was moved to 7, so filling in that 6-drop might actually be fine, so definitely a card to keep an eye on. Then we have Lily, Crystallian Conductor, so 2-drop 1/1, Lily print, which is nice. I actually really liked Lily's artwork, it was always a nice card. So being Forestcraft, it is a fanfare. If at least 2 other cards were played this turn, give +1 to all allied followers. Then if at least 4 other cards were played this turn, give +0/+1 to all allied followers. So basically a straight up buffering card, which is nice. It actually has the exact same effect as Elf Song, but with a body, which is nice for its basic starting effect. Of course, minus the health. And it's got some potential for late game. And Evolve, give +2/+2 to another allied follower. So if it is turn 4 or later, which is typically where you'd be playing something like Elf Song, this card could be pretty nuts. You could get a 3 buff on 1 follower, go face with it, and of course buff everything else, which is nice. So definitely going to be a good card. Then we have Myriad Dark Fiend, a 5-drop 4/5 legendary for Bloodcraft. Fanfare, if Vengeance is active for you, gain Storm. Fanfare, if you have two other cards or less in your hand, gain Drain. If you have 0 cards in your hand, gain a +3/+1. So I really like this. It's another kind of Storm follower, which is pretty typical, but I'm a big fan of aggro blood decks, so definitely a card I'll be keeping an eye on. Vengeance is pretty easy in Unlimited, and this could really fill out my curve in Unlimited quite nicely. So I'm definitely interested in throwing that in my Unlimited aggro blood. For rotation though, this might be a little more awkward as Vengeance isn't active as much, so unless in the future we get a decent Vengeance activator, I don't see this being played a lot in rotation, but I definitely think it'll be there. Then we have a Giant's Bane Swordsman, a 5-drop 5/5 gold for Swordcraft. It is an officer. Fanfare, destroy an enemy follower with at least 6 attack. Very, very generic. Another 5-drop sword card. Actually, it's kind of disappointing, so we've got 2 5-drops. If this was pretty much any other number, it wouldn't have felt as bad, but to have 2 things contest that 5 slot is definitely rough. Destroying an enemy follower with at least 6 attack as well is quite rough, as it's a really high attack stat. It would have been better if it was at least 4, then it might have been more useful, but I feel like this card is just a little bit of a waste. Then we have a Orchilium Golem, so a 5-drop 5/5. It is a Runecraft card, of course most golems tend to be. Accelerate 1 Earthright, randomly perform one of the following: summon a Clay Golem, put a Verdict Ritual into your hand, or deal 2 damage to an enemy leader. Repeat for remaining Earth Sigil amulets in play. So being random is a little rough, but considering it works for all Earthrights, if you can stack Earthrights on your board, this is a good way to remove them for extremely cheap. And it's also, of course, a follower, which we're going to go through now. So it has Last Word, summon 2 Earth Essence, put a Orchirium Golem into your hand, change its cost to 7. So the Last Word's actually pretty decent considering it summons them, and then it gives you basically the reuse of this card, considering it's going to be changing the cost to 7, but its Excel should still retain, which is going to be nuts. Last Word is going to be, of course, the same for the Evo, so even if you play this as a 5-drop follower, it's fairly decent, it's going to have some use, and of course if you're using it as a Accelerate, it's got a lot of use and a lot of potential, so that will be a lot of fun. I think Golem decks could have some potential coming back, which will be awesome. And I can't wait to mess around with this card potentially. Earth Rune's not too big now, but it could come back with something like this if we get a couple more support cards in the future. Holy Lion of Salvation, a 4-drop 2/5 legendary. Havencraft, of course, this Holy Lion's a Havencraft. Accelerate 1, put a Holy Lion crystal into your hand, and it has Ward as its follower. And of course, Evolve, put a Holy Lion crystal into your hand, change its cost to 0. So either way, you're going to be getting Holy Lion crystals, potentially one that costs 0. Turn 4 is a pretty good place for this card, as it's going to be fairly decent for that. And even on Excel for turn 1, it's fairly good, because you can play this out, of course, on turn 1 and have some advantage out of it. So definitely a card I want to play. I was a pretty big fan of Holy Lions as well. They were quite a fun deck that I enjoyed playing, and they're normally reasonably cheap. This will probably be the only legendary in the entire deck, and Holy Lions don't typically run golds either, so definitely still going to be one of the cheaper decks, and if it starts to become more competitive, it's going to be something a lot of people will be running. So definitely keep an eye on this card, as it's got a lot of potential to boost Holy Lion, that little bit extra it might need to put it back into the meta again. Then of course we have Laurel, Archer Throne, one of the neutral cards. It is a 4-drop 3/3 gold. Of course, Laurel Archer is a reprint of the silver, which is predictable. Silvers have been pretty much reprinted as 4-drop golds for a while now. Fanfare, enhance 7 until the end of your opponent's turn. Give all allied followers the effect reduce damage from spells and effects to 0. Evolve, deal 2 damage to an enemy. Pretty much straight up Laurel reprint, just buffed up. And of course the enhance is a nice little addition to give it something a little bit different, but otherwise pretty generic. Then we have Pure Voice Dragoon, a 4-drop 3/4 gold Dragoncraft card. Fanfare, if Overflow is active for you, choose put either a Dragoon's Command or Dragoon's Mediation into your hand. So Dragoon's Command is a 1-drop spell, put a Windblast Dragon and a Dragon into your hand. Enhance 10, summon them instead. I actually don't mind this card too much, as that's a 4-drop with decent stat line, and then this token card is actually fairly decent. Even if you're going turn 5, this card could have some potential to really round out your hand a little bit. Then of course Dragoon's Mediation is a 2-drop, restore 6 defense, so you've also got a healing option. So definitely an all-rounder type card. It is a pretty decent one overall, and looks like it should be a little bit of fun to really mess with this card. Even if it's not going to be super powerful, it's definitely above average, which is a good spot for this card to be in. Then of course, we'll go Trill. Devilish Idol, a 4-drop 3/3. Looks like they're really pushing some of these idol cards. I mean, now Blood has one. It's a Fanfare, choose, put either a Aza and Iza, Feline Maids, or a Demon Song into your hand. So pretty average stats for a 4-drop 3/3. I prefer 3/4 personally as a stat line, but we'll see what the choose cards really bump this up to. So a 3-drop gold spell is Demon Song, deal 2 damage to all enemy followers. If an allied Trill Devilish Idol is in play, deal 3 damage instead. So a slight damage boost for having a card in play, very similar to how I think Portalcraft was running with some of their stuff, especially the idol cards. So it looks like idols will tend to have these sort of effects. I suppose it makes sense, they usually work in groups. And of course the 2-drop is a 2-drop 2/2, Iza and Iza, Feline Maids. Fanfare, evolve an allied Trill, Devilish Idol, last word, restore 2 defense to your leader. So pretty straightforward. I mean, you're playing this on 6, it's actually got some decent value, as you do get the evo as well, bumping it up to a 5/5 and a 2/2 with some restore on the last word effects. So definitely worthwhile as a 6-drop. Could be really nice to add a couple extra cards, and probably more the control blood route, though. I don't see this fitting in many of the decks right now as they stand, but definitely something that might push a more control or mid-rangey blood deck in the future. Then Osiris, I don't know if that's what they were going for, I think it's Osiris. It's a 4-drop 4/3 Shadowcraft card. Fanfare, give another allied follower last word, draw a card. Whenever this follower attacks, gain 2 shadows. Okay, and then the evo is whenever this follower attacks, gain 2 shadows, last word, necromancy 5, reanimate 3, and reanimate 1. Wow, okay, so this card is a massive shadow generation. It's got a pretty decent stat line, 4/3, on the weaker side when it comes to stat lines for 4-drops with 3 health. I really don't like that with a 4 attack, as it does become an instant target, and this card in general will pretty much be an instant target. The generic give a last word is decent. Draws in shadow are always something shadow wants, so definitely good there. Whenever the follower attacks, gain 2, I like, of course, definitely massive shadow generation. And the Evo with the Necromancy 5, Reanimate 3, and Reanimate 1 is going to be pretty decent overall. Definitely another board flood type card for Shadow, and I could definitely see this being slotted into some mid-range decks to just help bump them up a little bit with Last Word, although at the same time, having this stolen by Sword could be really bad, so maybe the Last Word effect wouldn't be that great in that situation, but definitely I think worth a shot to give a go. Then we have Eliza, Queen of the Forest, a 3-drop 1/3 legendary for Forest, so a reasonably cheap legendary. Fanfare, randomly put one of the lowest cost Forestcraft followers from your deck into your hand. Last Word, at the start of your next turn, randomly put one of the highest cost followers, Forestcraft followers, from your deck into your hand. Last Word, at the start of your next turn, randomly put one of the highest cost followers in your hand, so it just copies and pastes the Last Word for the eval effect. But pretty interesting. I think if you built the right kind of deck, this could be a really good tutor. I mean, we used to see the old, what was it, Goblin Mage pulling roaches. This could definitely target roaches, and you could still keep some neutral cards in those low slots. So unlimited wise, this card could be nuts. In rotation though, it's still a pretty insane tutor. Pretty much direct targeting tutor as well if you build your deck properly. And Last Word, being able to get a higher cost one as well, you could tutor 2 cards, so that's pretty nuts. Although it is right in the banished range, being a 1/3, if with a quick evo, it could definitely be pulled out of that. So definitely a card I think we'll see play in Forest for sure. Probably not aggro-y Forest, but any kind of mid-range or later variants will definitely want this card. And that does round out all the cards for the mini expansions. That is all 17 of them. It's been a lot of fun. We will be having some pretty great stuff coming, of course, on the channel. We'll be having new decks. We'll be having our pack openers. We'll be having a storyline run. They'll all be coming in like the first day and so. And then we'll be back to pretty much regularly scheduled deck videos every day after that. And if anything interesting comes up after that, we'll of course be covering it. And then of course the next expansion will be the end of December. Obviously we always have one right after Christmas, usually around the 28th to 30th range. So expect that around then, and that'll be pretty huge, and we'll be covering that in full here on the channel. So hopefully you guys enjoy the video, hit the like button and subscribe. Until next time, see ya.